MSG is an endocrine disruptor, and it's also an inflammatory agent. And this has been proven in lab tests since the 1970s. And what happens with obesity is that MSG triggers an insulin, adrenaline, fat storage, food craving response in our brains. And this depletes our serotonin levels, which triggers headaches, depression, fatigue, and it leads to more food cravings. So we feel so rotten, so what we do is we reach for the same foods that got us into that situation in the first place.
So it's also addictive.
It's very addictive.
So why doesn't she just stay off it? It's not as easy as it might seem. Pure MSG must be labeled. That's an FDA regulation. The problem is a lot of food companies mix it with other ingredients. It can be hidden under a variety of different names like sodium caseinate, autolyzed yeast. Even natural flavorings can contain it. It's always in hydrolyzed protein, and it shows up in some foods you'd never dream of, like tuna fish. So you can come into a supermarket and read the label. If you read the label on this, if you don't know that it's in hydrolyzed protein, you think you're getting tuna fish that has no MSG in it. That's right. And it has MSG in it. Right. At present, there's no limit to the amount of MSG that can be put in food. And because it's added under different names, you can get several doses of MSG in the same product. So unless you know what to look for, you could have a problem.
Sam, take a look at this one. I think you could have this.
Sam Kastick and his grandfather Rich had no idea that the food in their supermarket could be a health risk.
Ooh, natural flavoring.
Can't have that.
But when Sam was hospitalized with a severe asthma attack, the doctor said he was reactive to MSG. And almost everything he'd been eating had MSG in it.
Well, can't have that.
Why are we hearing about this now? I mean, we used to hear what people used to call the Chinese restaurant syndrome. People would get an MSG buzz, and then it sort of went away. But now all of a sudden we're hearing about it all over again.
If you look at the 1960s, when you first heard about that, probably 10 to 15 times the quantity of MSG is now being added to our food.
Why so much more now?
Flavor enhancement has gotten to be big business. Let's say you and I form our own company, and we have a big vat of our soup right here, and you put in 20 chickens and 10 heads of celery and, you know, things of that sort. Okay, now what if somebody comes along and says, forget about your 20 chickens, put in 10 chickens, and instead put in a pound of this stuff, and you're going to get a very similar flavor profile.
And this stuff will cost less than
This stuff costs less than $1 a pound. Chickens are expensive, MSG is cheap.
Are there other reasons for using MSG besides the economic bottom line? We thought that was a good question. A host of major food companies wouldn't answer it. Heinz wouldn't. The makers of Chef Boyardee refused. Progresso said no. Accent, no. The Lipton Company refused. The Campbell Soup Company also said no. The food industry acknowledges 2%. And 2% means 5 million people. Dr. John Olney is convinced many more are at risk.
I'm talking about risk to infants and children. That makes up a very large percentage of the population.
It was Dr. Olney's research showing possible danger to infants that led to the removal of MSG from baby food back in the 70s. He's concerned about children today who are exposed to unregulated amounts in the food they love most, fast food and snacks.
Those are mine. Leave them alone.
10-year-old Jeremy Laros had been diagnosed as hyperactive, failing in school, and had been subjected to everything from drug therapy to special education programs. But nothing helped.
I couldn't get my work done and stuff, and so the teachers were always yelling at me, and everybody was teasing me because when they thought that I had attention deficit disorder.
Other children didn't want to be around him.
Julie Laros was ready to give up. For 5 years, her son Jeremy was angry and aggressive toward his schoolmates and family.
He was miserable because he couldn't cope with his own behavior.
Jeremy's family took him to Dr. Schwartz, who told them to remove all MSG from his diet. Almost immediately, there were dramatic changes. His hyperactivity disappeared, his grades dramatically improved, and so did his relationships with friends and family.
Okay, Jeremy? Yes, I'm okay.
We lost him for 5 years, and we have him back. And he's a wonderful, delightful, beautiful, bright child, and it was a long, hard search.
You may not realize what it's doing to your body. It can lead to obesity, heart and brain damage, cancer, and damage, of course, to unborn children, to the fetuses. MSG is everywhere. So how can you avoid it at your grocery store or restaurant? Here's medical reporter Galen Tetherow with the final part of this very important series.
Keeping monosodium glutamate off the table is no easy task. Your waiter or chef rarely knows anything about hidden MSG or what ingredients have it. In the grocery, there are dozens of hidden names for MSG.
The consumer needs to tell these manufacturers, we're not going to buy your product until that's taken out, and don't disguise names because we'll find out what they are.
And Dr. Russell Blaylock says science is finding more and more problems that may be caused by MSG, even infertility.
Because the male sperm cannot get to the egg, and it decreases the number of sperm. And the female, we know the ovary is filled with glutamate receptors.
MSG stimulates those receptors so that a woman's eggs become damaged. And with basic life issues like that, is the Food and Drug Administration sounding any alarms?
The FDA has never walked into a flavoring house or into a food producer and stated, give me that flavoring, I want to test it for free glutamic acid. So it's never been tested.
Jack Samuels learned MSG caused his heart spasms years ago.
On 2 occasions they thought I had died because they could not get a pulse.
And for his own safety, he only shops at a natural food store called Jimbo's with a specific strategy. Here are some of his secrets. Pick organic vegetables without cosmetic wax.
They wax them to look better and to fill in the crannies that are normal to growth.
And that could be a glutamate type?
They sometimes put a hydrolyzed protein into that mixture.
Buy milk which is pasteurized but not homogenized. But not this one that's ultra-pasteurized.
It brings the milk to a higher level of heat, and in so doing breaks down some of the protein, and so an individual like myself will get sick.
Terry Strauss blames MSG for the migraines he suffered for almost 15 years. He looks for those secret names at a regular grocery.
We stay away from bologna and hot dogs and all of the cheaper processed meats. This is all really safe for our family. The ranch, it might be fat-free, but it has MSG right in the ingredient list. There's a long list of ingredients, and certainly some things that could mask MSG, but in a small enough content that it doesn't trigger any kind of a reaction in our family.
So there are definite ways to keep healthy while grocery shopping. And our careful consumers say groceries shouldn't worry about losing business. Strauss says his family actually spends a little more, yet eats much healthier, so everybody wins. But what about those restaurants? Some chains, like Pizza Hut, list their ingredients online. Pizza Hut even has 5 food items they actually warn as having MSG, such as their wings and salad dressings. Pizza Hut is not alone. All of the major chains we investigated had items with disguised MSG. When deciding what to order, be aware that salad dressings, sauces, breaded meats, and meat toppings are common offenders. Classier restaurants are generally safer because they often cook from scratch and add real spices instead of manufactured flavor enhancers. But to be sure, you may have to talk to the chef to find out what he or she uses. So what should you do in general? Blaylock says go for the fruits and vegetables. He has a DVD on nutrition so families will know the good things that counteract MSG's effects. He also warns about aspartame, the diet sweetener, which is a related compound. Blaylock especially recommends dark green vegetables because they are high in antioxidants to diffuse MSG. They're also high in magnesium, which can actually block MSG from those glutamate receptors.
Name something that it doesn't affect, because these receptors in the spleen, they're in the liver, they're in the heart, they're in the GI tract, they're in the immune system, they're in the brain, they're in peripheral nerve, in the vagus nerves, in the heart, and all the arteries.
For centuries, the Japanese have used a little seaweed as a flavor enhancer. It had a little glutamate, but it didn't seem to cause any problems. Then about 100 years ago, they started manufacturing it, laying the foundation for today's problems. Massive use of MSG, improper labeling, and a federal agency that refuses to have it labeled so consumers can make intelligent decisions. Reporting from San Diego, I'm Galen Tetherow, CBN News.